Good morning, Our City Church. Did you guys see that? Try to open the Bible and start closing on me. It's like, no, we will read this today. You will stay open. Hey, if we hadn't had a chance to meet yet, my name is Mike. I'm so glad you guys are with us. I want to welcome everybody online. Thank you for tuning in. Glad you guys are with us as well. Hey, if you have your Bible, I want to invite you to open up to Genesis 32, very first book of the Bible, so it'll be really easy to find. Genesis 32 will be coming out of that today. If you've heard me speak before, today I get to close up this Our City Collective series. It's been a phenomenal series. This series is all about just like giving permission to each pastor that's been up here to be like, hey, what is God speaking to you right now that you feel like will really move the heart of our church and really connect with our church? And we have a phenomenal pastoral staff here led by Pastor Chris. He kicked off our series, which was unbelievable. Then Pastor Kellen came up, and then Pastor Jimmy. Or no, it was me, then Pastor Jimmy, and then that's me again. So like there's been a lot of fun within this series that we've done, and I've just been so excited. I'm just sitting there listening to just our leaders and our pastors in here, share their heart and what they feel like we would need to know and hear and go. And I just love that I get to kind of close up this series. So if you heard me talk before, this is more of a message of me just kind of like sharing with like a family and just kind of be like, hey, like, here's my heart for you. This is almost like a family gathering. Like, let's get together and let's just kind of like talk about, like, reminisce, and then also encourage each other and really be there for each other. So I often share stories about my kids, right? I love my kids. If you don't know, me and my wife, Tierney, she's sitting right here. Go ahead and wave your hand around. Why not? Just enjoy it. Oh, what a wave. She's done it before. Look at that wave. So we have two kids, Micaiah's 7, that's our daughter, and then Tyson's my son, and he's 4.5, about to be 5. It's a big deal. If you call him 4, he corrects me every single time. No, Dad, you're wrong, and kind of stupid. It's 4.5. I'm just like, slow down, son. Dang. One of my favorite things to do with them is to wrestle them. Okay, I love wrestling my kids. It's so fun. You think I just love wrestling my son? I don't. That guy likes to fight all the time. I like wrestling my daughter a lot, okay? Because she's so feisty. And I don't expect it. I don't expect her to kind of be like, let's go. But you can tell in the beginning, she's kind of like, haha, it turns into like a tickle fight in the beginning. Then I'm like, we're not tickling, we're wrestling, okay? So let's get it. And I can see the switch in her face, and she just starts getting kind of angry. And I'm like, oh, let's go. This is getting awesome. And there's that fine line, like dads of daughters, like you got to know, to where it's like with your son, there's like probably a little bit more aggression you could do with what that is. But like with the daughter, you can kind of feel the sense of like tension and fear kind of like building up, and like, this is too much for me. And then it's like quickly into tears. So we've had a lot of tear moments, and I call those failing moments for me. But nonetheless, like, we quickly recover from what that is, and we have a good time. And I heard someone say this online. I don't even know if it's true or not, but I think it is, and it kind of makes sense. But what they're saying was, late at night, right before they go to sleep, you should wrestle your kids because it gets all this extra energy out, and then they actually find themselves finding deeper sleep, okay? So if you're married, and if you like to wrestle your kids, maybe your spouse tells you not to do that because you're riling up the kids and you're making the house kind of a nightmare, okay? So that happens sometimes with our house. And I'm like, so right when I found this video, I sent it to Tierney like 8 times in a row. And I was just like, hey, this is actually a good thing. We should be doing this all the time. So I'll be wrestling with them late at night and stuff and getting them all riled up. And then, like, sure enough, they go to sleep. And I'm like, hey, this is actually working really well. But this is one thing that I realized. Like, we are way more used to wrestling with things in our life than just like when it comes to kids, or when it comes to the actual sport of wrestling, or when it comes to other these things that exist. But we're actually really prone to know what it looks like to wrestle. Real simple things for us, right? If you play sports, or if you're an artist, you wrestle with your art, you wrestle with your sport, and how to really excel at that, okay? So a lot of us in the health like process of like, how do I live a healthy life? Like, you wrestle with what to eat, how to exercise, do all whatever that is. Our finances, right? You're looking at like, man, I really wrestle with like how do I excel? How do I get more of my finances? What are we doing with our money? How are we setting up for our retirement? How are we setting up for our kids? Blah, 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 right? Our relationships, like, we wrestle with how to stay connected and how to be with each other. When it comes to parenting, how do we wrestle with making sure we're providing for our kids the best way we possibly can? Wrestling isn't a foreign concept to us. It's really normal, right? But what happens in life that I really want to dive into today is when you start wrestling with stuff, and what we find ourselves most of the time when we wrestle with something is we're oftentimes successful. Okay, we don't often wrestle with a lot of things that we fail at. we most of the time are just gonna like go after it, or like go after the promotion or the job or the relationship, and we find ourselves oftentimes being successful in the things that we're wrestling with. But here's the problem, is that when we find ourselves practically successful and we start wrestling with these things, but yet inside of our hearts, what we find is we find ourselves not yet satisfied. So we're going from moment to moment, finding ourselves being successful in specific areas, but yet we find ourselves still not satisfied, so we have to then wrestle again. Not satisfied, wrestle again. And then there's this quick turnaround to where it's like, man, I'm really glad that happened, and I'm really glad that that thing worked out in my favor, and I'm actually winning, and therefore we celebrate. It's a quick celebration, but then it's a quick point of evaluation of how to do it better next time, right? And we find that in so many areas. So think about it now practically in our lives. If you're married with kids, like you can be sitting there and you can get home, pay the bills, you can clean the house, you can get the kids dialed in, you can do everything, and like seems like everything in your house and everything in your life is locked in, but yet you're disconnected with your spouse. I'm successful, unsatisfied. Have you ever been disconnected with like in your relationship? It doesn't really kind of matter all the other things that are working. It just seems like there's something that's majorly off in your life, right? Okay, same thing with the sport. It's like you can win the game, but yet you find yourself constantly thinking about the improvements that you need to make to be better for the next game. And we find ourselves with these tensions. We find ourselves with these issues. You can go buy the thing that you've been looking on and you've been talking about it, so therefore Instagram and like the internet is just flooding you with ads on all of what it is, and you're like, oh, why do we talk about this? Right? And so you've been thinking about it, you've been talking about it, and now you're getting it, and you're finally like, you know what, let's go for it, and we're gonna buy it. So you buy it, and then now it's bringing you so much joy and success, and I got it, and this is awesome, and it's amazing, but now, months later, weeks later, years later, it's just another thing that you own. Right? These practical, successful things, but yet not satisfied internally, becomes an issue for us. And then what do? We end up finding ourselves what? In this cycle that we repeat, and we find ourselves stuck in this. So now we're just living this life that we're just going around, and now we're not looking for success anymore because we know that we're just like, man, I'm actually doing really well in a lot of areas of my life, but I'm not yet finding the thing that's actually making me feel fulfilled, making me feel like I'm just thriving in my life. So therefore, we're repeating the cycle over and over again, and it gets exhausting. So what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about how do we actually look at a story that this man's living his life and he's actually interacting with so many things. He's massively successful in so many areas, but yet he's not yet internally satisfied. How do we find that satisfaction? How do we find that fulfillment? How can we actually find ourselves still yet successful, but yet at the same time satisfied? Good. This is not a message by any means for us to say it's only about your satisfaction, it's only about the fulfillment of your life, and don't be successful. It doesn't matter how you grow your business. It doesn't matter how you connect to these things. It doesn't matter if you actually perfect certain areas of your life. No, that doesn't matter. What really matters is you feeling fulfilled and a life full of purpose and all that. I actually don't believe that. That's not what this is. This is you should do a good work in your life. You should find massive amount of success. You should be gifted. You should be talented. You should do all the above. Yes, but you should never sacrifice the fulfillment and the purpose of what it means to be human for those things. And we oftentimes do. We often find ourselves being like, oh, I'm hollow, I'm empty, this really isn't working, but all the way around me, everything screams that I should be happy. It's the phrase, it must be nice. You ever seen someone that has something that you don't, or you see someone that in a level of success that they're walking around with, and you just think to yourself, oh, that's sweet, it must be nice. But yet you can sense from them, you can sense their spirit that it doesn't really mean that much to them. You know what I mean? It's like things that are like, yeah, that's cool. It's whatever. It's like you walk in and they have this like sports memorabilia like section in their house and they got all these cool things and you're just like, whoa, this is amazing. I went to this one guy's house and he had an imprint of Shaq's hand, which is like double the size of my hand. I'm not a small person. And I was like, this is insane. He's like, oh yeah, it's pretty cool. I was like, wait a second. No, this is still insane, right? And it was like, I could just feel from him. I was like, okay, be cool. Like, oh, yeah, it's whatever, dude. Shaq. He sucks anyways, right? No, I'm like, don't be cool. Like that's always gonna blow my mind. I have a low wonder bar, okay? I get awed by a lot of things. And you're like, this is awesome. So like to me, but yet you see these people that have these things and you're just kind of like, man, what's going on? And what you often can feel from them, if you're paying attention, you can feel this doesn't mean that much to you. It probably did at one point, but now it's just the norm. It's just the mundane. It's this level of success, but yet there's still more purpose in this life, right? So I want to look at a story, Genesis 32. This is a man named Jacob, and I want to give us some there and then. Everyone say there and then. Like you mean it. Say there and then. Okay, thank you. So I want to talk about see his life and see some of the principles that he pulled out of what this thing is. Before we get into the story, some background of Jacob, okay? His father is Isaac, okay? Isaac's father is Abraham. Abraham was one of the pillars of our faith, okay? He's like one of the founding fathers of what this whole thing is. And so he's like the genealogy that leads all the way to Christ. So it's a big deal of what this family system is, okay? So there's Isaac. Isaac marries Rebekah. Rebekah gets pregnant, and they have 2 boys, twins, okay? Esau and Jacob. Esau's born first, and then Jacob is born, literally, scripture tells us, by holding his heel on his way out. This is a big deal because back in the day, the birthright, the blessing, everything that when it came to sons went to the firstborn son, not the secondborn. And if you're a twin and you're coming out directly second and you just didn't actually wrestle and earn it in the womb and you lost and you came out second, that actually is going to haunt you for the rest of your life, right? So now what does Jacob learn? Jacob learns that he's now had to make up a whole lot of ground for what this is. Esau and Jacob are vastly different when it comes to what they enjoy. Esau enjoys hunting. He enjoys being outdoors. He enjoys providing. Jacob enjoyed being around the tents and being more like introverted in the process of him not doing much and going out and actually providing and hunting and doing all that. Isaac, the father, loved Esau more and was more prone to him. Obviously, we see that way more in tradition and way more in its social settings, that would be actually way more normal when it came to the firstborn. Rebekah would take on Jacob and actually care for him more. What we see is Esau, at one point, is he goes out and hunts, exhausts himself. He comes back. Jacob's at the tents. He's making stew. And then have you ever gone out and exercised? Have you ever done anything that was exhausting? And you just like say the phrase, I'd do anything for something to eat right now? Well, he says this to Jacob. He's like, man, I'm starving. I'd do anything for some food right now. And Jacob's like, really? Why don't you give me your birthright and I'll give you some stew? This man was pretty hungry. So he's just like, deal. I don't care about that birthright in this moment. You can have it. Just give me something to eat. And so he deceives him and he takes his birthright. And so the birthright equals inheritance. And the inheritance back in the day for the firstborn was a double portion of what the secondborn would get, which means that he's getting majority of the inheritance of his father. And so now Jacob is now coming up. He's stealing this thing. He's deceiving, and it's amazing. So now the other difference between Esau and Jacob is this. Esau is an extremely harried man, and Jacob is not. So Isaac is getting older, he's losing his sight, and so Jacob puts on sheep's wool with the help of Rebekah all over his arms so he can go deceive his father so that he can steal his blessing. So now he can have the birthright and the blessing. And then sure enough, it actually works out in that process. He steals his blessing. So now Jacob has the birthright, now Jacob has the blessing, and now Esau hears about this and wants to kill him, rightfully so. He's like, yo, I came out first and now I'm losing everything. This is crazy. Okay? So this process now leads us up to this story. So now Jacob gets wind that Esau has a handful of men with him, that he is going out and he is going to see him. He thinks, with full of fear, worry, shame, and guilt, he thinks that he's going to kill him, rightfully so. So what does he do? This is where we pick up in the story. What a great there and then. Thank you. I feel fantastic about that. Who needs some notes? All right, Genesis 32, starting with verse 22. I practiced that a lot, by the way. All right, verse 22. That night, Jacob got up and he took his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants. It was a different day. And his 11 sons, and he crossed the ford of Jabbok. Okay. Verse 23. After he had sent them across the stream, he sent over all of his possessions. Okay. Make a note of this, that this river was an extremely dangerous river to cross, okay? Why would I tell you that? I would tell you that because of this. That when you have fear, worry, and guilt inside of you, and you have shame that's running you, and it's like leading you in specific areas and directions, you will do very risky things so you can save face. When you start lying about stuff, when you start moving things around or you're deceiving people, you will do whatever you got to do to keep that thing going and to stay afloat of what that is. He's sending everything that he owns. He's sending everything that he has and that he's worked for. All the successes that he's developed, he's now sending just so he can save some face for what this is. This is building this whole process of this one idea. I'm majorly successful, but I'm internally yet not satisfied. Okay? Something's driving this vehicle that we get really comfortable with. Have you ever seen someone's response in a certain conversation and it was abnormal to the situation at hand? Okay, in your marriage or in your relationship, you're talking about something and then their response seems like a little bit heightened compared to what you're talking about. And you're kind of like, I don't know why there's so much energy around this. And then later you come to find out it didn't have anything to do with this thing, but it had to do with this thing over here. And you're like, that makes way more sense. Why don't we just talk about that in the beginning, right? So Jacob has a pretty heightened response that is abnormal. Why? Because it's not just about Esau seeing him. It's about him losing everything that he built up, and he can't afford to do that. Verse 24, so Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak, okay? There's an art in this that he sends everything that he has away, and that he finds himself alone. This is probably the best thing that Jacob has done so that he can actually start interacting with what's real. Okay, there is an art in today that I feel like as adults we have lost. It's called getting alone. Finding some solidarity, finding some time, finding some solitude, finding a process to where you can be like, hey, I just need 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I need an hour. I need whatever it is that I need. I just need some time and space so I can just be by myself. If you got little kids and you're married, you need to give your spouse a gift by having some space and saying, go take 20 minutes, go take 15 minutes, go take a break. I got this, and then you can come back in here and engage. But I don't care what you do. Go on a walk, go sit down, go do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. Just go take some time to where you can be alone and just gather your life. That's not just from men to women. That's not just women to men. That is all that is a process that we all need in ourselves, because when we are finding ourselves alone, that's when we can truly start figuring out what's really going on with us. You've been caught in so much chaos and so much busyness and so many to-dos where you just haven't spent enough time to slow down to really think, what does this really mean to me? What really matters? What do I really care about? What am I actually doing in life? And it's as simple as taking a couple minutes for us to sit there and process and just be like, God, what really matters right now? Am I making a big deal out of some things that aren't a big deal? Am I not making a big deal out of some things that are a big deal? Am I prioritizing things that I shouldn't be prioritizing? What am I doing with my life? And we often don't get to actually slow down. We're just responding to everything that is around us. We're just reacting to the things that are coming up. And we're just in a constant state of crisis and constant putting out these fires, go to work, come home, take care of the family, be with the spouse, try to connect, do all these things. And it's so hard to actually be fully present in these moments because we don't ever find moments to pause and to be alone. And I understand why. Most of the time when you get alone, you have to deal with what's real about you. The reason why we oftentimes don't find ourselves alone is because we're actually refusing to deal with what was really going on within us. We can think that getting alone will deal with the circumstances that are around us. No. We have a lot of relationships and a lot of situations to do that. When we get by ourselves, we have to confront who we are. We have to confront how we are interacting with our life today, and sometimes that's not an easy process to embrace. Sometimes you have to hear from your spouse, like, you know what you're doing, right? And I have to look at Tierney and be like, yeah, of course I do. With that dumb look on your face where you're kind of like thinking like, do I do that? You ever get caught processing when someone tells you like, you know you do that, right? And you're just like, yeah. Obviously, that's why I did it. And you're like, no, that's not what that is. You don't know that you do that, and you probably should stop doing that, okay? So we need some honest accountability, yes, but we also need the process to be able to sit down and to be able just to be alone. There's an art in what Jacob is doing here, and he's finding aha moments that he's about to step into just because he simply found himself being alone. He continues in verse 25, and he says this, when the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip so that his hip was wrenched, and as he wrestled with the man. So there's this experience when it comes to wrestling, Okay, there's this interaction, there's this closeness, there's this battle, there's this when I see this, I don't see this cute little devotional. That could work for some of us, but it just doesn't work for me. It's hey, I'm at Starbucks, or I'm at a coffee shop, and I got my Bible and my journal, and I'm processing with God, and this is how I live my Christian life, and look at me. That's never worked for me. You know what works for me? In my car, listening to worship music as loud as I possibly can without blowing speakers or my ears. And me with a terrible voice, by the way, I don't sing well. That's why I sit in the front and I sing really loud. And if anyone's around me, they're just kind of like, oh, he's passionate. Tierney has literally rubbed my back one time and she says, I love that you're so passionate. You sing so terrible. And I said, stop touching me. No, but I have to sing with so much passion. I have to have an outlet. I have to be able to process. For me to engage into the wrestling when it comes with God, it does not start with intellectual. It does not start with this contemplative state. I don't read scripture and I don't walk around and be like, oh, I'm so motivated now. Not in the beginning. I get there. Me and Pastor Jimmy are slightly different in that. Pastor Jimmy will sit down and just be like, morning coffee, sit down, open up like theologians, philosophers, Bible, and you'll just get motivated with the starting process of that. Not me. He will end up in worship and end up with praise and end up with all of what that is. And I start with worship. I start with praise. I start with this. I need to feel this experience. And then I can find myself in a deep wrestle and then get in scripture. And then I'm like, ooh, I love this. So there's something about this engaging process that you have to figure out for yourself. Where is your starting point? What's the wrestle look like for you to engage? Because it can't be a hurdle. It has to be something that you would step into and that you would look forward to. Okay, like I was driving, I work out really early in the morning. So 5 o'clock, so that means I'm on the road at like 4:45. I try to get as close to 4:50 as possible because I'm trying to stay in bed as long as possible. And I see people with headlamps on running in the dark. And I told my buddy, I was like, yo, what is that about? That's a different level of fitness that I've never even considered doing. And then I had to think about it, and I was like, well, that guy's probably looking at me and be like, you're going to walk in and start lifting weights early in the morning? He's like, I'd never do that. I'm like, oh, I guess that's true. Like different strokes for different folks, right? Like it's one of those things where you're just kind of like, there's no way that like people will do the same thing to get like the different results. So all of us have this process of us looking to connect with God, but you got to find out, what is my process like? What would it look like for me to begin to wrestle and begin to engage? Because it's not a simple, easy, non-wrestle process when it comes to us actually engaging with God and be like dealing with the things that are in our life that we really need to confront and deal with. So it has to be this thing of be like, God, I need to actually confront some stuff. What's gonna get me into that arena for me to be able to do that? And once we know what that is, I'm telling you, it's so life-giving and so freeing for us to step in to be like, okay, I'm ready to be honest. You ever had that moment where you're just kind of like not honest and you're just like dealing with stuff and like things aren't really going well and like you know the conversation's happening, whether it's in a relationship or whether it's with God, but you're just kind of avoiding it? The opposite is true. Have you ever been in a conversation where you're totally open and honest and you're ready to deal with whatever's going on, and then the conversation's happening and you're way more receptive to the process? One is being receptive. The other one is being defensive. If we can find our entry point that connects with us, that leads us into this interaction and this wrestling point with God, we will be way more receptive than we will be defensive when it comes to interacting with God. So as I'm talking, you know who you are. You know what you like. You know what you enjoy. And sometimes in church, and when it comes to spirituality, we think there's an order that we should all be able to do it. And this is how everyone does it. That's not how it works. There's not the I need to listen to worship music and then I need to pray and then I need to read the Bible and then I need to do this thing. No, some people love to go on prayer walks and they just love being outside, and that gets them like really processing with God. Some people love to write their prayers and be able to process and be able to like make notes in journals and like be able to like get all their thoughts out through pen. Like some people, it's like, as I'm saying all of these things, you're like, oh, I love that. Give yourself permission to engage into wrestling with God the way that He designed you to be. We don't have to start in a fashion that we weren't created to start in. That does not mean you don't ever end up writing your thoughts down. You don't ever end up going outside and going on walks and processing, that you don't ever listen to worship music, you don't ever read the Bible. No, you do all those things, but it just finds itself in a different slot after you've done the priority one first that you know is gonna get you engaged into what the fight is. He continues in verse 26. He says, then the man said, let me go, for it is daybreak. But Jacob replied, I will not let you go unless you bless me. Daybreak. Notice that in the beginning it says that at night he sent all his possessions over, then he got himself alone. That means this. He wrestled all night long. Which means this. We have to give ourselves quality time when it comes to the things that really matter to us. We don't want to be in difficult seasons for long. We don't want to be in struggle for long. We don't want to be in pain for long. We don't want to deal with any discomfort for a long period of time. But oftentimes, when we experience discomfort, pain, issues, fear, shame, guilt, when we feel these things, what we want is we want to actually like disrupt it, get it out of here and be like, God, come in, give me your peace, give me your comfort, give me your love, give me your joy, give me your goodness. Make the exchange quick. And it often doesn't happen quick. What it takes us to spend quality time wrestling all night long. Sometimes our night looks like months. Sometimes our night looks like years. Sometimes our night looks like days. Who knows what it looks like? But all I know is this. Don't disengage from the fight until you start interacting with this process and be like, I'm not getting my results. God's not shifting what this is. This isn't changing. Well, what happens if he gave up in the middle of the night? He would never find what this blessing is. He would never find what this is going to turn out to be. He wouldn't find the result of what he's looking for if he gave up in the middle of what it is. I don't know what you're facing right now. I don't know what you're currently in the middle of. I don't know what you just came out of. But do not give up. Do not throw the towel in. Our God is a God that is for us, that is on our side, that wants to see us persevere, that wants to see us thrive, that wants to see us step into new life and new beginnings, and wants to see fulfillment in our story. But there's a process that we have to play, and it's not one of those things where it just automatically takes place. It is not a microwave process. We are not in this relationship that just goes, I just put it in this thing, boop, 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 and it comes out a minute later, and therefore I have a different life. That's not how it works. It's I'm getting alone. I'm sending all my possessions away. I'm finding myself by myself. Now I'm engaging in this hard, aggressive wrestling process, and I don't know what it's going to turn into, and I have no idea what it's going to be. I just know my desires. I know what I long for. I know what I want for my family. I know what I want for myself. I know what I want for my spouse. I know what I want for my business. I know what I want in my life, and I'm just now fighting it. And sometimes it takes until the next day, the next month, the next year, the next cycle, whatever it may be. Sometimes it takes longer than we want it to take, but keep fighting, because then you can make the request as you're fighting to the end of the day, saying, bless me. And isn't it interesting that a blessed man is asking for another blessing? Why? He's successful. He's already blessed. Why ask for another blessing? Because he's not internally yet satisfied. When you take someone else's blessing, you're not going to be satisfied with it because it wasn't yours to begin with. When you take something that's not yours, even though it's now yours, if you've ever stolen anything from anything or anybody, then you just know it doesn't matter what that thing is, it doesn't sit right in your soul. Whenever you cut a corner, whenever you cheated anything, whenever you did something that was like, nah, this is not how this is designed to be, then you know in your soul that it's like, this was not meant to be like this. Jacob is now a blessed man, but still asking for a blessing. And it's just because he's coming to the realization that none of those things were for me. I'm never going to find peace with what those things are. The successes in our life are so amazing and so awesome, and we should hold on to them, but they're never meant to satisfy us. They're never meant to fulfill us. They're never meant to define us. What we do in our businesses, what we do in our marriages, what we do within our kids, what we do with ourselves and our own goals and ambitions and passions, those are phenomenal. Have them, do them, but keep them on the shelf of, this is what I get to do. This is not who I am. Who I am is significantly more than that. I get to do that. That's just part of personality. That's just part of fun. That's just part of my preference in my life. I just enjoy that. But that's not me. I am so much more than that. That's an attachment too. Verse 27. The man asked him, what is your name? Jacob, he answered. There's so much in this story. This is the first time in Jacob's life that he actually admits to who he is. All that there and then process, he's sat there and he tried to be so many other people and so many other things in his life. And he tried to just be this hunter like Esau was. He even pretended to be Esau so he can deceive and he can actually do these other things and become successful. But what we find in this moment, something major is going to happen in his life because he finally slows down and he actually answers the question, who are you today? And he confronts who he is. This is who I am. My name is Jacob. And then he says this in verse 28, then the man said, your name will no longer be Jacob, but it'll be Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men and have overcome. Why does it matter that he changes his name? Notice this, Jacob, if you love scripture, if you're following Jesus, if you're interested in spirituality, if you're interested in Jesus and you're doing any of this, this is going to be a huge pivotal moment for what this is. Why is he changing his name? Jacob means this, he grasps the heel. It's a Hebrew idiom that means this, that is, he takes advantage of or he deceives. So his own name in itself, his entire life, Jacob is actually doing exactly what he should be doing. He's doing everything that he was supposed to be doing. Scripture is poetically showing us how this is playing out in our lives. We are doing what we're trained to do. We're doing what we're seen to do. We're doing what we've been taught to do. This world shows us how to interact, and this world will tell us this, just become successful, just do the thing, earn the money, set your kids up, have a retirement, live the full life, the American dream. This is what it's all about. Give yourself to it, earn it, become more, do more. And we find ourselves in this cycle to where we believe that and we begin to give ourselves that. And then in that idea by itself, we're massively successful, but yet in the process of our soul, we're empty. And so what does Israel mean? Israel means this: God contended, wrestled with God, fighter of God, triumph with God. He's shifting his name to saying, no, you wrestle with God now. You are a triumph with God now. You are a process to where you have freedom, you have goodness, you have things that are working for you. You are no longer going to be deceiver. You are no longer going to be walking around and just like at the heels of man, at the heels of this world, but now you get to actually process with the divine, process with fulfillment, process with everything that you would possibly want so you can find satisfaction for yourself. And at the very end, in verse 29, Jacob said, please tell me your name. But he replied, why do you ask my name? And then he blessed him there. Jacob finally gets his own blessing through this whole process. He got everything that he was ever looking for and something divine for himself from God because he sat there and he wrestled all night long. Here's what I want to say to us today. Sometimes you have to do some risky things by confronting your fear and your worry and sending off all your possessions, finding yourself alone so you can process through some stuff that's really going on with you, then actually wrestling for a quality amount of time so you can actually deal with what's really going on because it's not this cookie cutter microwave process. And in the midst of that, still making the request of confronting, I know I have what this is, but I'm not yet satisfied. So this isn't working. So God, I need you to give me something, even though it looks like this, but it's got to be different because it's got to come from you because I stole this and this doesn't belong to me. This will never belong to me and it's not fitting me. I need something different. And in the midst of that, just being like, still asking, what is your name? He's still requesting more. I need more. God, do not let me go. I need something from what this is. And he goes, be blessed. You know what's happening? It's the introduction of what we get to see in Scripture of a relationship being formed with man, and it's divine. Be blessed, I'll be with you. Be blessed, I am for you. Be blessed, I forgive you. Be blessed, I am now satisfying your soul. What would our life look like if we walked around not just successful, but truly satisfied because we wrestle and we choose to wrestle with God on a regular basis? What would your marriage look like? What would your finances, how would you interact with your finances? How would you interact with your kids? How would you parent? How would you see the world? How would you deal with the things you disagree with in the world that are around you? Would it cause so much strife and so much irritation and anger and I can't believe they would ever? Or would you be like, yeah, that's what the world is. I want to love, I want to care, I want to actually lead, but it's not going to disrupt me because that doesn't define me. We are so unsettled often because we're functioning from a different set of processes, a different set of blessings, a different set of birthrights, that God has something significantly different for you. In my 20s, I'm only 36, so I'm not far removed from what that is, but in my 20s, I know I'm going to say it like I'm old right now, but I know I'm not old. But in my early stages of being a leader and a pastor, here's one thing that I learned. I learned that as being a pastor, there's so many people that come your way, the art of being a pastor, and really the essence of being a pastor is connecting with people and helping people connect to God. That's it. When you're so young, there's so little life that you've experienced yourself. There's like, how am I supposed to help with, like, I don't know. Like, I know what I believe. I know what I've experienced. So there's a lot of compensation that takes place with our young leaders. And they're trying to figure it all out, just like I was. And what I learned was this. I learned that I was trying so hard, and I was actually a really good, gifted pastor. We ran great youth ministries. We ran great leadership schools and processes. And I saw so much life change take place in so many people's lives. And I saw this incredible move of God take place. A couple weeks ago, I was just scrolling through Instagram. I don't know if someone sent this to me. I don't know if something popped up. I don't know. I saw, it was in my photo reel. And I was looking, that's what it was. I was looking for 2 weeks ago, listen to the message, it was really good. When I preached, I talked about a story when Tierney and I went to Kauai and she threw up the hang loose on her head. I was looking for that photo and I couldn't find it. Pretty sure she deleted it. But as I was scrolling that far back, you what? Yeah, 100% it never happened. So I'm like looking, and then there's a bunch of memories that popped up of like our old youth ministry. And I looked back, and I myself had a really weird moment of, I saw what our videos were of our recaps of some of the youth services that we did, and I was so impressed. I was like, this is so sick. And I was like, wait, I ran that. And I was blown away because as I was running it, I never really enjoyed it while it was happening. I missed it. You ever gone to the vacation and you're just surrounded with like everything that you wanted to be, whether you travel internationally or you go somewhere where you're like, this is it, and you're just so not present where you just missed it, and you look back at photos later and you're just like, I remember when we did that. And then if you had to get really honest, that everyone else goes, I can't believe you did that, and I can't believe you experienced that. What an amazing opportunity. Must be nice, right? And then your heart goes, yeah, I still haven't experienced it. I still didn't enjoy it. I don't know. I mean, we did it, but I just didn't do the thing. And we're just disconnected from our life. I don't want to be a pastor to be disconnected from my life anymore. I don't want to be disconnected from this church. I don't want to be disconnected. I want whatever we are doing, I want to be fully engaged. I want to be fully engaged in my marriage. I want to be fully engaged with my kids. I want to be fully engaged in the process of whatever my life is. I want to be massively invested in what that is. So I have to do what? I have to give myself to the thing because I so love building, growing, developing, investing. And I love, like, I got to have something in my hands that I'm like messing with, right? And I'm just got to be like, well, what are we doing? How are we growing this? What's the direction of what this is? I can't stay stagnant. I enjoy projects. I enjoy what that is. As I do that, I cannot lose myself in the process. So I had to set myself up with a couple things that are going to be really helpful so I can always evaluate how do I actually take all these concepts and implement it. There's 3 simple things that I found that have been really, really helpful. The first one is this: be willing to get alone, just like Jacob did. You got to find consistent time to be willing to get alone. If you got little kids, you're married, you're going to have to now partner with your spouse and figure out when you guys are taking turns to do that. Do not make each other pay when you guys are taking turns. What I mean by that is this: when they're done and they come back in, it's not like, it's about time, you're on now. I'd rather not take the break to come back to the headache of when I took off and be like, now it's worse, right? That doesn't feel good. I'm not gonna wanna leave. I'm not gonna wanna retrieve. I'm not gonna wanna be able to do any of that because I won't be able to engage in what I'm doing if I know that what I'm stepping back into is going to be worse. So once one spouse or when someone's taking time for themselves, that means that you are now going to set them up a gift so when they come back, it's better when they left. So when they come back, they're like, I don't have to clean up everything that exists. I'm like, nope, we're good. Tierney, go like whatever. Go to the beach, go watch a show, go do whatever you want. And when she comes back and the kids' toys are all over the place and they're running around and the house is a mess and the kitchen's blowing up, and it's just like, all right, man, my turn, see you later. Make sure dinner's ready and the kitchen's clean while I get home. It's like, no, you're missing it. She's never gonna wanna ever leave the house. She's gonna be like, I can't, that's not worth it to me. I don't love that, I don't enjoy that. When she comes home, the house should be spotless. The kids should be having fun and playing and all that, but it's not my time just to have fun and be fun, Dad. My time is now to what? Make sure everything is set up so when she walks back in, whatever happened in her soul, now her environment will represent the same thing, which is free, open space, connect. Don't walk away and declutter your soul and come back into a cluttered life. Let's figure out how to get alone time so when we come back into our life, then what do? We actually have an opportunity to step back into it. If you're not married and you don't have kids, that means this: set up your house, your room, your life, your environment before you take your alone time. Don't go, it's like when you go to vacation, you're gonna leave, it always feels amazing when you come back to a clean house, right? It's like you scramble like crazy, get everything clean, dial it all in, and then when you come back, you're like, oh, it feels good, right? And when you go on vacation and you don't do the scramble before and you come back and you're just like, that was amazing. You walk into the house, you just want to like close the door and be like, let's just go somewhere else for a little bit. Not worth it. Don't want to do that. That vacation sucked now. Don't want to be here. Right? So set yourself up for success. Think with the end in mind. I want to go declutter my life, so therefore I have to declutter my environment. Okay? Second thing is this: admit who you are today. This is a hard one. It sounds easy. It's not. We lie to ourselves all the time for this reason. We judge ourselves off our intentions. We oftentimes judge others off their behaviors. Flip that. I don't care what your intention is. Judge yourself and here's a better word. Evaluate yourself off of your behaviors. It does not matter what you meant. It matters what you did. Okay? If you said it, you said it. If you did it, you did it. I wasn't trying to. You got to understand that. No. It happened. Confront it. You do those things. You do them on a regular basis. So figure it out. Make a shift. Make a change. We need to now. Why do we have alone time? So we can actually sit down. Why do I do that? Why do I get so angry? Why do I get so upset? Why am I so defensive? Why is it impossible for me to say sorry? Why can't I actually do that thing? Why do I not care what happens to them? Why am I disengaged when I get home with the kids? I don't understand. Like, there's something that I'm just not an active person like I want to be. I always thought I was going to be, but I'm not. Why is it when I get home, I have this tenseness to me? Well, that alone time is going to help you figure that out as you wrestle with God, but you're going to have to confront what is actually manifesting in your life today. Not who do you want to be, not what your core values are, not what your principles are, not what any of those things are. Who am I actually living out today? What manifests for my life? And I need to figure that out, not through my intentions, but I need to figure that out through my behaviors. And if you really want to know, sit down with your spouse and say, I don't want you to tell me what I want to hear. And I will say this: I am sorry ahead of time if I get defensive. My defensiveness is not to you, it's to myself. I'm going to probably be upset with what you're going to say. So I'm giving you guys some good gold right now on how to make sure that you don't project on your spouse, whether it's husband or wife, does not matter, or any relationship that you're in. Sit down and tell on yourself, what you're going to tell me is probably going to really irritate me and piss me off. None of us like to hear what's true about us, especially when it's not good, right? That doesn't feel good. And if you're like, oh, I could deal with it. Yeah, okay? You could probably deal with it because you're committed to it and you're mature, but it doesn't feel good, okay? Just because we handle our business like mature adults doesn't mean it feels fantastic. You're failing with the kids right now and you're disengaged and you're on your phone way more, and then you're actually way more hard on your son than you are on your daughter, and you just sit there and be like, yeah, this feels great. That doesn't feel good. And spouse, if you're gonna give the advice, if you're gonna give the honest feedback, if you're gonna give the evaluation, like I said 2 weeks ago, preached a phenomenal message, listen to it, do it with love in your eyes. When Jesus looks at a specific man in Mark 10, he delivers truth, but he does it with love in his eyes. He looks at him, he says, I love you, but I still want to tell you the truth. Let's not tell each other the things that we're failing at, by looking at each other and be like, oh, you disgust me, you bother me, you irritate me. Gather ourselves before we deliver hard information and be like, I love you, and I want good things for you. So therefore, this is still true, but I love you. That will be a different process. The last one is this: give yourself time. This is an overnight process. So that means this, two different areas that exist in this. Giving yourself time means this: there's grace period for the in-between. There's grace period for a new education and a new aha and a new revelation that you're gonna live with old behaviors. So I'm gonna function like I used to function, but I know better now, right? It's the irritation if you got little kids where you're sitting there and you're like telling your kids something in the beginning stages. So it's like the first handful of times you told them, and then now the 10th time or the 15th or the 40th time you've told them, you're just like, we've been over this, what are you doing? It's like, can we lock it in? Can we do it, right? Like, you already know this. Shut the door, okay? Close the door. Like a real specific example. No, but it's like the thing that's like, okay, we've talked about this a bunch, but in the beginning stages, there's so much grace, right? Give yourself the grace in the beginning stages of what it is, because you're gonna have a new education, but we're creatures of habit. We have so much life experience of doing something in a specific way. We're gonna need our habits and our habitual ways of living to catch up to new education, new revelation, new freedom of how we see the world. That's true for the individual, and that is also true for the spouse or the person, the partner in the relationship. Do not hold them accountable to the T of being like, you should now get this right because you know better now. No, I should actually expect that you now know better. Now you're gonna try something different and you're gonna fail and suck at it for a little bit. So I'll give grace and space. Truth and grace is all about what Jesus' kingdom is all about. Let that be true for us as well. Okay, let's be so truthful with one another as we get alone, as we confront who we are today, and as we provide some space. And that space is all the grace that we need so that we can begin to progress and allow God to do a work on our behalf. Last thing I'll say, if you are married or you're in a relationship, it is not your job to do any of this for the other person. Do not do their work for them, okay? Your accountability process is to be like, if you want to know what's real, feel free to ask. That's your accountability process. If you want support and care and encouragement, feel free to ask. I am here to provide that for you, but I'm going to give you space so that you can process with God, and I'm allow this to be a God work, not a me work in your life. I will not change this for you. I will not do this for you. I will not actually lead you to this. I will allow God to do this for you, and I will now be there supporting you, caring for you, and and encouraging you through the process of what it is. I really hope that this is encouraging. I really hope that this is life-changing. I really hope that in 6 months from now, that if we can actually marry these concepts and we can truly find ourselves wrestling with God, identifying how we engage in our wrestle with God, engaging in what God has for us, how we're designed, what we enjoy, what we love, I promise you, your interactions with God are gonna be so much greater than what you ever imagined. If you are already currently doing this, you understand why people are so sold out and in love with the process of Jesus. It's the most exhilarating thing on the planet. If it's exhausting to you to get started in the process of when it comes to being spiritual, following Jesus, and having a relationship with God, it's because you're trying to fit this specific system that you're not designed to. It's okay that you start somewhere different. It's okay that you're different than some of the other people that are there on stage or that are surrounding you. It's okay that you need a different starting point. We're all designed differently. As we find our starting points, we're gonna find the whole process of what it is. And when we start doing that, then we're gonna really engage into a wrestle that God has for us. God is way more interested in who you are as a person rather than the things that you do in this world. The things you do in this world is a byproduct of who you are becoming today. I'll say that again. The things that you do in the world is a byproduct of who you are becoming today. Let's spend more time and energy on figuring out God, keep doing a good work within me, and may my response be a good work in the world. Let's pray. God, we love you. I'm so thankful, Lord, that we have a church, that we get to sit here and close this series out before we get into the fall, before we get into so many different activities of our life, God, and whatever's going on in our current life right now. whatever we need to hear. I pray that whatever name change needs to take place in our life, whatever shift needs to happen with us, that we'll begin to, let us just ask you, God. Let us have permission just to speak freely to you in this place and saying, Lord, will you be able to speak to my heart? Here's the issue that I have. I've been deceiving, I've been struggling, I've been successful in these areas, but yet I'm still finding myself hollow. God, here's what I really feel, and I hand it over to you. I pray we'll be honest about what's really going on. I pray that we won't treat our relationship with you how we treat the rest of the world and feeling like we have to earn so many things that exist in our life. But we don't have to earn your love. We don't have to earn your goodness. We don't have to earn anything that you have for us or earn your blessing, but we just have to spend time with you and wrestle, God, and then speak from the desires of our hearts so that you can grant us the number one thing that we're looking to have in our lives: fulfillment and connection with you. And I pray from that position that there will be an outpour that we have, that we get to be a good gift to the world because you are a good gift to us. I pray all of us will have these incredible wrestling matches with you, that we find ourselves alone, that we find ourselves tooling through so many life experiences that we've had, and we can make exchanges with you for our brokenness, our letdowns, our heartaches, our pains, and that you can restore them with joy and goodness and peace and comfort, and you can restore us so that we can navigate our world by being present and by being life-giving and by being engaged to everything that we have. May we be super successful in every area of our life and what we give ourselves to, but as we find our successes, God, may we internally be so satisfied because we get to function from a position of a God connection that gets to restore and to be with us on a regular basis. So I pray, God, that we find a new name and a new way of living in this world, that our wrestle isn't done in vain, that our success isn't done from emptiness, but God, we get to live from fulfilled lives. We get to live from satisfied lives. We get to give ourselves to the world because you have already given yourself to us. We love you, God. I pray this over our church. I pray that over us today. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Our City Church, I love you guys. Thank you so much. We're kicking off a brand new series next week. Pastor Chris will be kicking off that series. So can't wait to see you guys. Love you all. See you next week.